Hi, this is Eileen, and you're with the Connection of Hope moment. And I am just excited about just doing a quick Bible study with you. Uh, in the book of Daniel, a lot of you guys are familiar with this, it is a familiar text. But in the book of Daniel, Daniel means God judges. Why was God judging? God was judging the children of Israel because they were disobedient. They just never listened to what Yahweh would tell them to do. They would always find themselves going back and just worshiping false idols, and so God judged them. In the book of Daniel, in chapter 1, verse 1, it says, "In the third year of the reign of Jehoiakim, the king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem and Besieged it. As we see, King Nebuchadnezzar came to Judah and took them captive. Well, the king Nebuchadnezzar wanted to have good young Jewish men on his side, or young men. So he told his workers to go. And if you look at verse 4, it says, he told them to go and find young men, some noble young men in whom there is no blemish, but good looking, gifted in all wisdom, possessing knowledge, and quick to understand, who had the ability to serve in the king's palace. Interesting that we see a pagan king who wants to get the greatest of God's children. So he goes and picks 4 young men. And we're going to look at them today. We know them as Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego is actually not their Hebrew name. That is the name that Nebuchadnezzar gave them to change. It was a Babylonian name. It was a worldly name. So, and it's interesting because Shadrach, his name, his Hebrew name is Hananiah, which means Yahweh has been gracious. So he changed that. And then Meshach, his Hebrew name, which is Mishael, means who is what God is. And then Abednego, his Hebrew name was Azariah, and that means Yahweh has helped. Interesting how this pagan king can go and get children of Yahweh, who is named after him, for a reason, because it shows God's character, that God is a present help, that God is with us, and then wants to change their name to Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Interesting, huh? But if you can go further in this chapter, not only did the king want them to be his slaves or good slaves, he wanted them to partake of the things that they were partaken of in Babylonia. But as we know, that Daniel and the other Hebrew boys refused. They refused to eat from the king's palace. Matter of fact, it says, "But Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with the portions of the king's delicacy, nor with the wines which he drank." He didn't want to defile himself. And you know, that is something that we need to understand, that we are children of God. And there are people in the world who wants to use our gifts, all of our talents, but then they want us to defile ourselves by using what they have. You don't have to do that. God has given you this special gift. Do not defile yourself. Do not eat from the king's table. And as we know, that Daniel asked him if they could eat from their dietary laws, and they did, and they were healthier than any of the other young men. So that really impressed the king. And we know, I'm going to skip to chapter 2, that Nebuchadnezzar had a dream, and none of his people could interpret that dream. But then Daniel interpreted the dream for the king. He was so impressed with Daniel's God that he was able to interpret the dream through Daniel, that he gave Daniel a high position in his kingdom. Sort of sound familiar, doesn't it? Sort of sound like Joseph when Joseph was down in Egypt and he interpreted the Pharaoh's dream and Pharaoh put him in charge of everything. It is so interesting how if we just do what God has equipped us to do and use our gifts for his glory, then even the secular kings or our bosses at our workplace will elevate us because they will know that God is working through us. So that is a lesson to learn from Daniel. So Daniel was exalted and put into a high position. Well, he did not forget about his three friends. And he gave them positions also in the kingdom. So I want to get y'all caught up because I've read this and I'm sort of paraphrasing so I know exactly where we are. But after Daniel revealed the dream, if you could look in chapter 2, verse 44, in that area, 44 through 49, it says that, especially in 49, it says, Daniel petitioned the king, and he said, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego over the affairs of the province of Babylon, but Daniel sat in the gate of the king. So these young men took care of each other. Isn't that interesting how Christians, believers who are in the workplace and we get promoted and we need to take care of our brothers. Don't let them just go by the wayside. Try to help them as much as you can. So that is what Daniel did. So we see all of these three young men getting a promotion. Isn't that good? God is good. So that takes me to chapter 3. You know, the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar was so arrogant. He was so into himself that he decided to make an image of himself. And then had the nerve to say that he wanted everyone, when they heard the instruments and the flutes and the harps going, that he wanted everyone to bow down to his image. Interesting. Although we don't have a king today, sometimes I'm sure you could agree with me. You can look at your workplace, and you have those who are doing well and they're promoted, and they have the nerve. I did say that. They have the nerve to want you to bow down to them when they get their accolades. Interesting. But I tell you what, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and that is their Babylonian name. I did talk about the Hebrew name earlier. They said, we won't do that. We will stay true to Yahweh. We will only bow and worship one God, and that is the true and living God, Yahweh. We will not bow to the system. We will not bow to the ways that they are doing things. We will honor God in all that we do. That is such good news. And we should be the same way. I don't care what is going on. I don't care if everyone else is bowing to this system or in your workplace or whatever. You need to stay true to the Lord because he is your present help. So we are in chapter 3. And Nebuchadnezzar has erected this statue of himself and wanted them to bow. And you know that they did not. They did not. Well, could you imagine that? We have high officials who's over other people, so you know they were jealous. And then when this harp starts blowing, these three men did not bow. Well, you know there's always a spy in the camp. So they go to Nebuchadnezzar and they said, didn't you make a decree that when this happens that everyone should bow? Well, we want to tell you that even your elected officials are not bowing. So he had them to bring Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego face to face with the king. Bring them to me. So if you look into chapter 3 and go to verse, I think it's 15. Yes, 15. No. Go back to verse 14. Nebuchadnezzar spoke, saying to them, is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the gold image that I have set up? Now, if you're ready, at the time you hear the sound of the horn, the flute, the harp, and the symphony with all kinds of music, that is when you are to fall down and worship the image which I made. Good. But if you do not worship, you shall be cast immediately into the midst of a burning furnace fire. Who is the God who would deliver you from my hands? Bottom line, that was a big threat. He was telling them, if you guys do not bow, immediately I'm going to take you and I'm going to throw you into this fiery furnace. That was a dilemma. Honestly, it wasn't a dilemma for those young men. It was a dilemma for the king. He just didn't know it yet. So guess what? These three men said in verse 16, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to answer you in this manner. In other words, O Nebuchadnezzar, we're not even worried about this. Verse 17, if that is the case, our God whom we serve will be able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us from your hand, O king. But if not, look at that. They understood God is sovereign. If not, let it be known to you, O king, that we do not serve your gods, nor will we worship the golden image which you have set up. Oh, I'm so excited when I think about their response to the king. They didn't waver. They didn't fret. They knew the God that they served. They said, "Oh, king, don't even worry. And if this be the case, you can go ahead and put us in this fiery furnace, because I'm telling you, we will not worship your God. We will not bow down to him. We will not do it the way of the system that lies. We will do it the way that God told us to. So go ahead. Get ready. Put us in the fiery furnace. And our God will deliver us. He can deliver us. He always delivers us. But I'm going to tell you, even if he chooses not to. Oh, I just love that. They just knew the sovereignty of God. Even if he chooses not to, you better know, go king, we're still not going to bow to you. Oh, God is good. Have you ever been faced with a dilemma in life and someone tried to give you an ultimatum and you knew that God has called you to something else, to do his will, and you just look at them and you go, I won't do it. God will take care of me. And even if he chooses not to, I will worship him and serve him anyway, because he is my God. But what you need to know, I will not bow to the way of the world. Oh, these young men gave us such a powerful encouragement, y'all. And guess what? They were thrown into the fiery furnace. Matter of fact, Nebuchadnezzar was so mad that they would